Welcome back to the Board Game Community Show. I'm your host, Riley Stock, and today we are going to get to know Jess from Dissent Games. She's got an upcoming Kickstarter, and we talk about a lot of fun things. First, a little bit of business. The second episode of our bonus episode series, Bunkers and Badasses, came out on Wednesday. Those will be out every Wednesday for a couple more weeks. And they are a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for the positive reception. That's really all the business I have. Enjoy the interview. Hi, Jess. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going well.
Good.
Excellent.
Now we pretend like we didn't have any pre-banter or anything like that.
There's nothing. Zip.
Yeah. So usually I like to start with what got you into board games. Are you a big board gamer or just a designer?
Am I a big board gamer? Yes, I am a big board gamer, though I'm not that keen on big board games, to be honest. You know, I'm a small board gamer and a card gamer more than anything else. Yeah, you tend to find some of the, you tend to find games which play in less than an hour, on my shelves.
That's a good time frame.
Yeah, it's a good time frame. But to be honest, the ones I love best are the ones which are the the shorter card games. I'm thinking about the things that I play most often, and I think actually Lost Cities is probably the game we play most often. Lost Cities or Seven Wonders Duel. And that's just because they are Lost Cities is quicker than Seven Wonders, but they're both two-player games which are fairly straightforward, quite easy. I love them both.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Seven Wonders Duel not too long ago, and it's quickly become one of my favorite two-player games.
Yeah, it's very useful, especially over this last pandemic, when there is really only one person I can play most games with.
And who is this other person?
So my husband and I play games on a fairly regular basis. He is better at strategy than I am. He's definitely a longer thinker. I think I'm better at balancing a game. So actually, Seven Wonders, then we're relatively evenly matched because he tends to want to go off in one direction, but I'm quite good at keeping the whole thing balanced, which is one of the things that Seven Wonders Duel does ask for.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I'm guessing you win that one a little more?
Slightly more. Yes, we looked back at the stats for that, and it is that I win slightly more. There are a few things where we really shouldn't play together. So Quirkle.
Yes.
Yeah. When we play Quirkle together, we frequently end up with something that basically just looks like three big squares. Because we both really like the picture and the image. We shouldn't play Carcassonne together either, because we end up, throwing away points for ourselves because something would just look so right in that space.
You should give yourself bonus points for making it aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. We really should, because we're quite good at that.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I'm like OCD, so I feel that need every once in a while.
Yeah, just to make it look really good. So I do like a good tile placing game, and I do like something where you end up with a board that looks really good.
Yeah. So is your husband really, really into board games too then?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, so we've been to some of the conventions together, not recently because we have small children and that's a little bit hard. But yeah, it's good. The thing we've been playing most, we've been playing Pandemic Legacy Season 2.
Oh, nice.
And we've played this with some neighbours of ours. But, of course, we haven't actually met the neighbours of ours, very much recently. So we bought this board game about a year and a quarter ago, just before, the pandemic hit. And we have been playing the whole thing over Zoom.
Oh,
And
wow.
they had the game. They were WhatsApping us the cards, pictures of cards. So they had the game. We were playing it over Zoom. We had all these notes. We were writing down. Okay, these cards are coming up next. Okay, right. What's come out so far. Okay, we should go there. We should do this, etc. We played the entire thing with me never physically seeing the board. They brought it round
Whoa.
recently. They brought it round recently, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's so good." It was really interesting to play an entire Legacy game without ever having touched the pieces.
Yeah, it's almost like a tabletop RPG experience at that point.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man, that's wild. So have you played like season 1 or season 0?
Yeah, we played season 1. We haven't played season 0. That's next on the list at some point. Which
Yeah.
I think I'll really like because because they say it's there's a slightly spy vibe in it, which
Yeah.
I think which really appeals to me. Certainly when I was growing up, then games like Clue to you, were that was one of my favorite games. So that kind of creeping around, trying to find something out, yeah. So I'm feeling that I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
But hey, let's see. Let's see.
I'm with you. I'm hoping to bust it out this weekend because we're going away to a cabin and we have no
Oh,
we have electricity, but no
yeah.
internet or no
Ah.
cell service, and so it's like we just play board games and read books.
So are you going to get through an entire Legacy game there in the cabin that weekend?
That's what we did with the other two, pretty much.
Ooh.
Both
I mean,
seasons we
because
played in like 2 nights.
yeah, because that's going to be somewhere between, that's going to be about 15 games, right?
Yeah, yeah, somewhere
Yeah.
in there if you count in a couple losses, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a few losses. Sometimes you only have, one or two, sometimes you have, five or whatever, but it's going to be, what, 14, 15 games.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow. Now, that is hardcore.
Yeah. I love it. It's one of the only games that my wife gets like super duper into. She's not a big gamer. So, yeah, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
What got you into board games originally?
It was probably Carcassonne, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
So I used to play a lot of card games with my family. I'd spend weekends with my dad, and we would play a lot of Rummy. And sometimes we'd play things like Whist, but it was mainly Rummy. We used to play Rummy 500, where you keep going and you have no hand limit, and you basically, you play multiple games.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that. And various forms of poker. Really enjoy. Never liked playing for money. In fact, the reason I probably didn't go down a real card gaming line was because I just don't like the gambling that comes into it. As soon as there's money involved, it doesn't feel that much like a game anymore. But I really liked playing poker for jelly beans. That's great fun.
Yeah, I definitely
um,
get that.
yeah, so I come from more of a card gaming type direction.
Okay.
And then, I'm thinking about university, this is 15 years ago or so. We had various copies of Carcassonne. We had the Princess and the Dragon one, I think, as well. The little expansion, and the one where you got to put a pig in the field. We had that one as well. So we'd play that, and that would be a kind of a gentle evening. Some of my friends and I, and, a bottle of wine. Um, you know, something to make us feel sophisticated. I think we normally had some cheese. This is
Yeah.
university. You're trying to be grown up.
This is
Bottle
very
of
opposite of our, American college where it's like party, beer,
well,
kegs.
there were also nights which were, beer and pizza and late night kebabs. Ah, the late night kebabs. Oh, in fact, the pizza that had kebab on it. There was at least one shop that
What?
did pizza with kebab on it.
That
That
sounds
was
incredible.
Yeah, and this, the special sauce, and you're like, this is 1,000 calories right here in my hands.
Worth it.
Yes. But yeah, so I think we played lots of Carcassonne in those days, and then I remember probably the biggest board game that I got then that was a proper board game. We somehow made a jump from Carcassonne to Battlestar Galactica, the board game.
Oh my goodness.
So I remember, in fact, getting 9 people round in a tiny flat, 9 people round. One of my friends doing a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning, how to play the game. And we had the expansions out, and it was just a really, really fun day. So
That sounds incredible. I haven't played that, but that's like one of the games where I don't think I can even find it to buy at a reasonable price anymore. But if I could find somebody who has it, then they're going to be my best friend so we can play it.
it is one of the regrets of my life that my ex took that game.
Oh no.
I was, by that point I was like, oh, I've played it a fair amount. I'm not that bothered about it anymore. Give me the various copies of Carcassonne with the little princesses and but no, so I'm a bit sad about that now.
Oh.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
It is.
That's all right. You ended up with a better guy, right?
Exactly. Plus, he brought his copies of Hero Quest, so.
Oh, hey.
So, yes.
Your husband did?
Yes.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So,
yeah.
What transitioned you from playing games to designing games?
So I still think of myself as not so much of a game designer, but more of a political activist, because that's what my real job is essentially. So I chair a UK pressure group which works towards a constitution. We do not have a written constitution here in the UK. It's rather ridiculous. Plus, we're busy importing all sorts of terrible forms of democracy. We've just had a Queen's speech the other day, which is where the government sets out their legislation, talking about voter ID and all sorts of things like that, which we really do not want to have. And we're moving away from, some of the better voting systems towards first past the post. Anyway, rant over. That's kind of, that's where I come from, and that's what I do. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go freelance from my job, so I did that. And that was that was when I was like, okay, I'm going to be, moving into a different part of my life. I might have a little bit more time to do things. Why don't I design a board game? And the game I really wanted to design was around this experience that a couple of my friends had had. So they had taken some direct action, and they had broken into a military base mainly to protest. They were intending to destroy the warplanes. Of course, they never got anywhere near them, because they got caught and arrested. The whole point of it, was that they were going to be put on trial, and they were acquitted because they said, yes, we did it, but our consciences, etc. These planes are carrying weapons of mass destruction. So anyway, it was a big trial, really thrilling. But I thought, oh, okay, the things they're saying about what they're doing, let's make a game about that. So I did a Kickstarter a couple of years ago called Disarm the Base, which was a successful Kickstarter. Sold 500 copies of that. And the game comes with a disclaimer at the front saying, don't do this. Don't do this unless you have lawyers present, unless you know what you're doing. Direct action is a form of testing the boundaries of protest. But yeah, don't do it because the game tells you to do it. It's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
But here's a game about somebody doing it. So yeah, really interesting and a fascinating experience to to make something. This is a cooperative game. You're trying to get into the base. You've got some bolt cutters. You've got codes to the hangars. You're trying to work out which hangars the planes are in. You're trying to avoid the security guards. Of course, there are floodlights that come on, and supposing you're in the wrong area at the wrong time, you could be lit up and exposed. So yeah, it was absolutely fascinating to do that, and the process really gave me the bug for it. So I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do next? So next I have next I kind of have two things on the go. There's a small thing I'm doing, which is that during May and June, then there's a game jam I'm hoping to do, where I think I have 5 people from the activist world who have volunteered some themes, and I'm going to ask people to make a very, very small game about those themes. Something on a postcard, literally. It could be a postcard game or a mint tin game or something which is, a 20 or 18 card game, something really, really small like that. So I know someone submitted something about peacemaking. Someone else has submitted about voter ID. Someone else, I think, has submitted something about inclusion in for various types of social inclusion. So those could all be very interesting. So that's happening sort of mid-May. Yeah, mid-May to mid-June. But the other thing I'm working on, so a group of us are working together to do a game set in a library. And this is a game where you're in a library and these fictional literary horrors have come out of the book. Imagine you're like a book group or something. You're the last people out of the library. Someone picks up a small book and goes, "Oh, hey, what's this?" Starts reading it. Lo and behold, it's some sort of cursed spell book or something. Library shuts down. Things start coming out of the books. You've got Dracula over there. You've got Triffids over there. Martian robots in the corner. Various things like that. A basilisk behind you. You need to build a team. You need to be helped by some of the characters from the book. So you kind of need to say, okay, right, who can we find? Okay, we've got Mount Doom over there. Okay, let's pick up this book. Oh, we've got Ada Lovelace, and here we've got Heidi, and here we've got Mina Harker. Okay, if the 3 of you get together, can you go and put Mount Doom back in its book? Okay, smash. Yeah, there you go. So it's a kind of, so it's a movement across modular boards, cooperative game. It's kind of a bit of a dungeon crawler, but not really. You don't have any dice. You've got cards. You're matching the skills that those character cards, the books you're picking up. You're matching the skills that they have to the literary horrors that have come out of the books. You've got a set amount of time in which you have to do this. There's a clock that's ticking down towards midnight. I mean, this is clearly a library in rural England because it starts closing at about 2 p.m. We can't quite work out how we're going to do that. I think we're just going to have it closing at 2 p.m. Otherwise, there aren't enough turns.
That makes sense. It's a Saturday. It's a holiday. I don't know.
It's a Saturday. It's a holiday. Something like that. So we're working on that, and we're hoping to have that come out to Kickstarter later this summer. We're probably less advanced with it than many people would be because we're just a group of people trying to put a game together. We don't have a big publishing company behind us, and I know that a lot of things on Kickstarter are absolutely perfectly, brilliantly play tested and the artwork's all done. We're kind of coming out saying, we do know what we're doing, honest, and here's a run through, and but we don't have the artwork for this, and we don't have the artwork for that. We've got this. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna come out with that this summer, but let's see whether we decide to put it off a little bit instead.
I mean, the pictures on Twitter that I've seen and the website, I think look really impressive. It looks cool. Looking
Thank
ready.
you. Thank you. Um, the actual characters are done by my friend Sam, who is brilliant. Sam is great at this. She's been doing a whole load of characters there, and she can actually draw.
Oh,
The
nice.
the floor plans, and the backs of the cards and things are done by me, and I got an Apple Pencil in January. So it's very much that I've kind of been teaching myself how to draw through this.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really interesting because I haven't drawn properly for years. And I've done, little line drawings and things, but doing it on an iPad is a really different experience. You can rub things out really easily.
Oh, yeah.
It's brilliant. You can do layers, and there are so many exciting things I've learned how to do, and I'm like, you cannot do this in real life. You can do you can do a thing where you get it where you only draw on a little bit of, and you get it to mirror what you're drawing 7 times around the page. It's great.
Whoa.
It's brilliant. So many cool features.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm really impressed. I'm looking at the tiles right now. I've got it pulled up, and I'm just like, that looks like a legit, very easy to understand
Mm,
tile. Like
yeah.
it's and they're pretty. Like, bravo, great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. It's something that the more drawing I do, the more I'm, getting back into it and thinking, actually, this is really fun. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
become a board game artist instead of a board game designer.
You can do both.
Yeah. Well, something I've been looking at is, when you've got really small games, I've been thinking about some of these things like postcards or something that actually, you can just have a really tiny package and you can do the whole thing yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
that does mean that you don't. uh, um, There's a pro there, I suppose, that you get to have exactly the vision that you want for that. I suppose the con would be that you don't get the constructive criticism that somebody else brings. When you're working together with someone, you've actually got to justify why you're doing things. You can't be lazy about it.
That's totally fair. I mean, I'm never lazy when I design games, that's for sure.
Well, there are so many things where I think, oh, yes, it's clearly that. And then someone goes, yeah, but why is it that? What do why are you doing that? Why is it that way
Hmm.
and not that way? And I think, well, no one's asked me why that way before. Is there another way? Which you get less of when you're working with someone else. You have to, when you can keep the pulling back and forth to a sensible level, which I think most people can, then it's really good because you get that constructive criticism on tap. You get that real, okay, how does this feed into this? You get those little challenges, which are
Yeah.
actually really useful.
And you don't have to wait for play testing, and then you play test and it's like, this game is broken. Okay. Wish I knew that 10 months ago. No.
Well, it's definitely useful to play test with other designers. So we've done various types of playtesting, and we've playtested with people who are already invested and who like the idea, and they tend to be really interested in making sure that the theme fits. Whereas when you playtest with other designers, they are really all about the mechanics, or
Yeah.
most of them are. They do like the theme and they like the idea, but they're more about, okay, well, why does it count down in that way? And why do you only have this? So yeah, you need to, yes, you need to playtest with some robust people.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm looking at this. Is it a 1 to 5 player game?
Yes. So we've So we think it actually works best with 3 players at the moment, because I tend to play test it best, most with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of doing the balancing of the cards. It will definitely work very well as a solo game.
Oh, nice.
Right now, we're trying to work out which cards, we're trying to work out whether we have a slightly smaller deck for solo, because at the moment it's got quite a large number of cards, and of course, the larger the number of cards, the less, the more chance and the less strategy there is.
That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. I see you have 100 character cards.
We are very much hoping to have 100 character cards. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the goal.
That's the goal. I mean, we were actually trying to work out whether we should have that many or not, because we were always saying, yes, we're going to have 100 characters. And then when we were doing it recently, we were saying, well, hang on, we're not getting through very many of these characters. We're getting to the end of the game and we've used 30 of these characters. Why are we having 100? Why are we having 100 if we've only used 30 of the books? But then we realized that actually it might be better to tweak something, which was actually a fairly minor tweak, but had some long-reaching consequences, which was around whether you could use each card once or whether you could use it twice. We'd previously been using it twice, but then we said, hang on, well, what if you can only use each card once? Because then, in order to keep cards in your hand, you had to keep picking them up, which means you get through far more books. But it's all about, how does it cycle back in? Because we quite liked the idea that once you'd used a book, then it was quite easy to get that book again, rather than having to, to go and get a different book from the shelf. So it's all about trying to balance it. So I reckon we're going to have a library trolley, like a library cart. Whether it's an actual thing that follows you around or whether it's just a space on the board, but then you can put all your books in there. But then we've done that recently and we found that we've now got, at the end of the game, we've got 50 books in this thing.
That's cool, though. That's pretty smart.
It's cool. But you don't want everybody to be sort of searching through, because there are a couple of cards that let you search through the library trolley of books you've already used to find one again. But I can just imagine someone sitting there going, no, I'm going to find the perfect card. Hang on. I'm just searching through them all.
Yeah.
Which might take a while and might actually lead to more analysis paralysis.
That's true. Yeah. But they may be thinking of a specific, I think more often than not, they may think of a card and be like, oh, you know what? There's this card, There's Ava Lovelace. I want to go get her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's probably one of those things where you need to know the game, because I know that with some of those games that have quite a lot of options, something like Caverna, for example, Caverna's got about 1 million things you can do in 1 million little rooms you can put in your little dwarf house. And it's one of those things that you kind of, they recommend that you go and look at everything first, before you play the game. Just look at every card. Look at every tile, because otherwise you'll be sat there through the whole game going, ooh, do I want the beer cabin or the food cabin or the animal cave? There's a cuddles cave, I think, as well in there.
Oh.
Not played Caverna for a while, actually.
I've never played it, so I don't know.
You have little dwarves, and they have a house, and you go and mine rubies.
Oh, okay.
It's very nice.
Nice, yeah. Cuddle Cave keeps it family friendly.
Well, yeah, exactly. The Cuddle Cave, I think, is where you store your animals as well, because you get points on the number of animals This is one of those games with about 1 million components.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know that I've ever really looked at it.
It's similar to Agricola.
Which I've seen a little bit of.
So it's one of those sort of classic Euro farming, various things. And you can grow, you can grow pumpkins, or you can grow wheat, and you can farm pigs and cows and donkeys and sheep, and you can put fences up, and you can mine things. You can do all sorts of things, and I always go and be fighting dwarf. You can go on adventures and discover things, which just sounds slightly strange. Here you are, you've got an adventure, and you've come back with a pumpkin, a donkey, and a ruby. What happened to you there? What went on?
What kind of adventure is that?
Well, sometimes you come back with new knowledge, like the ability to breed two types of animal, and you're like,
Oh,
that's an interesting adventure.
yeah. And how did you? You know what? Don't tell me.
Precisely.
Kind of jumping back to your library labyrinth.
Library Labyrinth, yes.
I love alliteration, so kudos there. But your one of the main ideas behind it was to do female and non-binary characters, right?
That's right, yes. So the characters that come out of the books will all be female or non-binary. I think at the moment, so looking at our list, we would like some more suggestions for non-binary characters, particularly fictional ones. So we have in there the public universal friend, who's a Quaker from the United States a couple of 100 years ago. I should know more about this because I'm also a Quaker, so it's
Oh,
so it's part of my my history there.
interesting.
We have a couple of historic trans women in there, but we are slightly bound by the fictional characters we can put in there because they need to be ones who no longer have copyright, which
Yeah.
basically means 70 years since the author died. So we're looking at things which were written, about 1940 is generally the latest, 1930s.
So non-binary is a little difficult.
Well, Virginia Woolf has a couple of suggestions there, but even so, it can be quite interesting.
Huh.
Looking at historic figures can be much more fruitful. Looking across the spectrum of history, there have been just so many really interesting people. You think, there are some real historic leaders who, particularly around the Mediterranean and Mesopotamia, who are from, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. It's just, the really interesting things that people did. There's also quite a literary, so the literary tradition, there's a lot of written literature from Europe. There's a lot from China and a lot from Japan. So one of the members of our team, she's British Chinese. So she's been telling us, the right way to write all of these names and the right way to pronounce them. And we're like, okay, right. So we shouldn't be talking about Qingxi. We should be talking about Cheng Vat Sao, because that's what she would have called herself, and things like
Oh.
that, where it's like, there are things where you go and you just look it up and you think, okay, right, that would be it. But having someone on the team who can say, this is what it really should be, that's invaluable. So we're getting some cultural consultants for quite a lot of these characters because we need to have that, first-hand experience. We need to make sure that we're actually, that we're treating the characters respectfully and we're treating them right. Not making them up does help. It does help that these are actually real people or they're literary characters that you can go and you can look up in a book. But
Yeah.
even so, we need to be absolutely certain that we've got the key details right. Yeah, because while there are some where I can say, oh, yes, okay, that is what, Elizabeth Bennet, could look like, or that is what, Becky Sharp could look like. When I'm looking at a character uh, like Wang Xfeng, who's from The Dream of the Red Chamber, which is one of the big Chinese novels written late 1700s, I believe, which is a really famous Chinese novel. This is a character where I can't tell you what the picture of her should look like. But Amy can, which is great.
That is so interesting. And yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you're hiring consultants
Oh, yeah.
because that is very, very important.
Well, we can't do it ourselves. We just don't have the knowledge. And whereas
Yeah.
our team, the team does contain some people, who have some of that knowledge, a team of 4 people or 5 people, can't stretch around the world like that.
Yeah, definitely. That would be impossible.
Yes, exactly. We can't have all of those heritages, so we have what we have, and we have to look elsewhere for the advice on the others.
Yeah.
The other thing we're doing, particularly with some of the characters' portraits, particularly the historic ones, to make sure the, that we that we get them right. We're talking to a historian about that. But we're also talking to a group of teenagers. So we've partnered with the Mary Seacole Trust, which is a UK charity here, who have kindly let us talk to their youth council, which is a group of teenagers. So we're talking to them about, okay, how does this all look? How do these characters look? Do these characters look like the sort of people you'd like to find out more about? Um,
Mm.
Plus, they're helping us get the balance right between something which is fun and something which is too educational. Because we want it to be a game, it's a game first and foremost.
Yeah.
Then it could be something that's fun as well, educational as well as fun, but it has to be fun first.
Yeah. Otherwise, nobody's going to want to learn more about these
Exactly.
people.
Yeah, exactly. We're not really making something that you want, that you want a teacher to bring out or you want someone to get for a youth club and they go, "Oh, do we have to play that?" There are enough games like that already. We want a game that people actually want to play, which which may have some educational value as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love it. What age range are you aiming for?
So we're aiming for adult mainly, but also for teenagers. This isn't for small children.
Yeah.
So we're aiming this at the gateway market mainly.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Well, gateway plus, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we want it to scale. So particularly with the time tracker there, that we've got it going, that we've got X number of hours that you've got until all the monsters escape out of the library and, that's it, you've doomed the world. We want it to be something where you can start it, right at the beginning, so you've got 12 hours. Yay, great. Which I think will be suitable for people who haven't played many of these sort of games before. But we also want it to be something that people, that those people who have played a fair number of games, that they will pick this up and go, okay, great. This might not be the main event of the evening, but this is a really good game which is less than an hour, where we can sit down, we can play it, it's a lot of fun, let's just play it through, and then maybe we'll get on to playing something a bit heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take?
It depends. When you're using Tabletop Simulator, then of course it takes longer, because you always add on a bit for that.
Oh, yeah.
But you also take off a bit for whether people know the game or not.
True.
When it is a group of people, say it's 3 people who know the game quite well, playing through Tabletop Simulator, then it takes just less than an hour. So I reckon that is probably quite accurate for real life, because the fact that we know it quite well is compensating for the terribleness of Tabletop Simulator.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, it's that thing where you're trying to rotate a card or something, and you're like, where is this card going? Oh no, it's gone in the other person's hand. Quick, get it back.
Yeah. Always add time for the lovely little quirks of Tabletop Simulator.
But it is really good because it means that we can genuinely playtest games. I've been doing
Yeah.
some of the the virtual playtesting, been going to some protospiels, and it's really nice to be able to playtest with real life people. Well, not real life people, but to be able to playtest with people, who are there at the other end of the other side of the screen. We're sharing this thing. I mean, this is so much better than playtesting, just by yourself.
It's I've been told stories of people who like literally get up and move from seat to seat, or get like a lazy Susan that they can just like rotate so that they can rotate the board and see it from different angles. And
Yeah.
yeah, now I'm like, now you can just upload it here and you get to save money on printing out stuff and then
Oh,
learning like,
yes.
oh, this whole entire board doesn't even work.
Yes. So last month we went to a protospiel, and we went to to this protospiel online. It was really great, but we brought the game on. We played it, I think, on Saturday morning or possibly Friday evening, and then we brought uh a- basically we changed a huge amount by Sunday morning, and we played it again. And then we changed the whole ending because we discovered that what we had put in order to try to mitigate the alpha player tendency actually made it worse.
Oh no.
Well, we'd put in something where we were like, okay, people, you've got to actually talk about the alpha playerness, and you've got to make sure that, so when it's so and so's go, then they are the lead player, but they can direct any players as they wish. And that actually didn't work because because people who were playing a little bit more robustly, who weren't already friends or part of a team already, were sort of
Yeah.
like, oh well, hang on, I'm lead player, I'm just going to do all of this. And then you got other people who were saying, hey, you should move me, I want to be moved. So you basically got the other players lobbying the lead player as to what they should do.
Oh no.
Which was fair enough. It was useful to know that that didn't work. It was really
Yeah.
useful to know that people actually slipped into this lobbying mode quite easily.
That would be interesting to apply to a different game. Like that would actually, it sounds like could be a fun mechanic for something
Mm,
else,
yeah, absolutely.
but not a co-op game or like necessarily.
Not a co-op game. I mean, actually, there's a half-finished prototype I've got that I want to bring back, and last week we had an election in the UK, which made me want to bring it back even more. But there's a half-finished
Yeah.
prototype I've got, which is about lobbying the other players, where you're all senior members of a political party, which has just done very badly at an election, and your leader has stepped down. So you, the people, the players round the table, need to decide which of you becomes the next leader. But you all want to get votes from the other players. So you're trying to build up a manifesto, and then at the end of each turn, and there are like, 5 or 6 turns or whatever, you have to vote for one of the other people at the table, stab one of the other people at the table at the back, and then give someone else a shield to protect them from somebody else stabbing them in the back. That game involves a lot of lobbying the other players and a lot of lobbying the leader who can give out the cards to you.
That's really interesting. That sounds fascinating. And it's kind of crazy. Like, I think, well, the US has been in this bubble with our past leadership.
Yep.
We won't get too political here, but it's interesting, like, hearing how much, uh, like, how many problems we share between our two countries. Like,
We
you talk
do.
about like voter, suppression and all other things, and I'm just like, holy cow! Like, I guess
Mm.
that's everywhere.
We are we we are not in a good place, I think. I mean, my personal view is very much that our democracy is getting worse, that it's disintegrating. And I think, we in the UK are going for stronger, more populist leaders, and that's really disappointing. There are some other countries in Europe who are doing that as well. Hungary's been going that way. But it is, yeah, it's really disappointing that that this seems to be a global problem. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
I think that we're leading the way at the moment. Last year it was you leading the way, and now it's us.
Yep, yep. Grr. Sorry about that.
Well, it's not a prize anyone wants to have, is it?
No, no. But I do like that you are using something fun to teach people about important issues, whether that's something political or something that's just like social, or like get to know all these strong female characters and non-binary characters, like they exist and they're important.
Exactly. And there is so much that people can learn through games, that it's a really good way of digging down into something and learning more about it. Supposing learn about, you want to learn about the economies of a particular system. Actually, there are games for that. You want to learn about, exactly how to, produce things in a factory. I mean, not quite, but there are games where you do that, and
Yeah,
yeah,
like you get the premise of it.
exactly. There are also games that kind of point you in different directions. So there are games like Spirit Island, which obviously, which give you some of the feeling of the type of history which has been left out.
Yeah,
That gives you the anti-colonial sense of it, and I really like that.
yeah.
But there are games which do something much simpler. So I went through a time when we had friends over for dinner, sort of, once every couple of weeks. We had some friends over, we'd play a game, etc. We were playing a lot of Flashpoint at that point.
Hmm.
And so that's a firefighting game, it's a cooperative game, you're getting people out of a burning building. That made me check my fire alarms more. I mean, genuinely, playing Flashpoint made me think, oh, I should check my fire alarms.
That's incredible. I love it.
Well, it's so useful, and things like that, they influence us more than we think a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that little nudge of like, you know,
You
this
know,
could happen.
maybe you should go check your fire alarm, your smoke alarm, where have you got it?
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, oh gosh, we haven't done that since we moved into this house. Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Uh, well, I'm gonna, if I can talk right. Usually near the end, we kind of dive a little bit away from board games and get to
Hmm.
know you beyond the hobby.
Yep.
So, what do you do outside of board games? What do you like to do?
What do I like to do? Well, apart from ranting about politics, which is obviously my favourite hobby, um, now this is going to sound like it's trying to segue back into the board game, but I promise, no. No, I enjoy a lot of reading. I
Oh,
really
nice.
do. Um, you know, so I'm a fairly quick reader, and I do like a good classic. I was recently reading The Moonstone, which is Wilkie Collins, and that's yeah, that's a good classic. Um, when I was on maternity leave with my firstborn, who's nearly 5, then I think I read most of the Agatha Christie's. Yeah, that's quite a long time. They're so easy, and despite the fact, that they're murder mysteries, they're also quite comforting.
Oh,
There's a
really?
certain world they invoke. Somebody's going to get murdered, but you also know that it's going to be fine, and that Poirot or Miss Marple or someone is going to come along and sort it all out, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that makes a
So,
lot of sense. It's the same thing with like TV shows where it's like, okay, at the beginning of a CSI episode, I know someone's gonna get murdered, and
but then it's all gonna be fine because they're
yeah,
gonna they're gonna sort it out. The guy with the sunglasses, it's gonna come along and
exactly.
and make it right.
Everything is good.
Exactly.
Justice.
Justice is done. Finally, nobody escapes.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely that element to it. A fair amount of gardening at the moment, so it's growing season
Oh.
here. Yeah, we have a tiny, tiny little allotment round the corner, which is very nice and is mainly filled with strawberries. And the
Hmm.
strawberries get eaten. I think last year we had about 3 strawberries off these entire plants. You'd see this strawberry growing, the flower would come up, the strawberry would grow, it would be nice, it would be green, it would be lovely. You'd see it just turning red, and then you'd go back the next day, and there would be this sort of blob and a bit of stalk, and you'd think, "Arr, I wonder what got that."
Oh no, that's
Mainly
rough.
slugs, I think, actually. Arr.
Nature.
Nature
That's
got it.
that's rough though. At least it's nature and not like neighbors just coming and stealing your strawberries.
That's true. The raspberries don't get eaten, funnily enough. We do get a lot of
Oh.
raspberries and some blackcurrants.
Where in the UK are you?
So I'm in Reading, which is just to the west of London.
Okay.
It's about half an hour on a fast train.
We've had a I'm used to having a co-host still. I've had a couple of people from the UK, and so like the other day I was actually looking through, so I know exactly where Reading is.
Excellent. You know where I am.
Yeah, one of the only places, because that for some reason it caught my eye.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's pretty convenient for Games Expo, which of course is going to be in the end of July this year, which is in Birmingham. And it's about, I think it's just over an hour on a train. No, it must be
okay,
less than an hour on a train actually to Birmingham. I mean, certainly last time I went to Games Expo, I was going as a punter rather than going as a stall holder or anything. And
yeah,
yeah, and last time I went to Games Expo, then I went up for a couple of days, but I didn't book a hotel or anything, because I just went on the train and came back, that evening, and it was fine.
yeah. What do you do on that long of a train ride?
Um, well, normally I read actually.
Oh, okay,
Take some, yeah, I'll take something. I'll take a paperback or something.
that makes sense. We don't
Yeah.
have like a lot of trains or anything here.
Ah. See, I used to commute into London. I used to commute into London, and that was a half hour, 35-minute train journey twice a day, there and back every day. So, the idea of sitting on a train for a while is pretty normal. You get used to it.
Yeah.
You normally take a magazine. In fact, I'm trying to think. There was a time in my life a few years ago, pre kids, when I lived in North London and I had a commute of um, 30 minutes run. So it was about 50 minutes walk, an hour walk, or it was
Hmm.
30 minutes jogging. And that was really good. I really enjoyed that. But for most of the rest of my working life, I've had a train commute of some sort or another.
Do people not drive as much there?
You wouldn't drive into central London. I mean, you certainly can. I mean, so, uh, so I'm just trying to think. So I don't own a car, so we're a no car household, which admittedly is a little bit strange here in Reading, but it's perfectly normal for being in the centre of London. So people who live fairly close to the centre of the city would not have a car, probably. So we
Okay.
hire there's a community car scheme where you can hire a car for a day every now and again. So we're signed up to that, and
Hmm.
we probably hire that car perhaps once every month or 2 months, to go and do things.
Yeah.
It depends where you are. When you're in more rural areas in the UK, then it is kind of necessary to have a car. But if you're living in, relatively close into the centre of a town, you may well not have a car. We have very high density housing, particularly well, thinking about it from an American perspective. Most of our towns probably have sort of the same density you'd find in somewhere like New York City.
Okay.
So it's really high density. We have an awful lot of Victorian terraces. So they're houses built 100 years ago, which are They tend to only be 2 stories high, some are 3 stories high, but they're quite narrow, and you get them sitting side by side, and you've got sort of long, narrow gardens out the back,
Hmm.
which you can actually fit quite a lot of those houses into a street with that.
I was thinking of New York. I was like, well, I guess here in the States, New York is that equivalent of London, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's like you hear about people who are in their 50s or 60s, and they're like, I've never owned a car. I don't even have a driver's license, because why
Yeah.
would I? Like, so that does make sense.
Yes, I think it's that actually we have much less of a suburban culture. Certainly there are suburbs, but they're not quite as sprawling as in the US. So my grandfather lived in Idaho for most of his life, and
Oh,
my
okay.
mum had cousins living somewhere in LA. So I've been out to a few houses. I mean, actually, I haven't been to the States for about 15 years, possibly more. But I've been to some actual houses in different parts of the States, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I definitely got the sense that I think that in the UK, towns are just more compact. Land is at a premium. So most
Yes.
of them, you will get far more of the terraces and the semi-detached. So most people won't have a detached house. While most people won't live in a flat either, except in the centre of cities, you'll have far more of these really kind of squashed together houses,
Hmm.
which I personally really like, actually. We're moving from one terrace to a bigger terrace.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a kind of townhouse type
Okay.
equivalent. In fact,
Yeah.
that's what it is. That we've got whole towns made up of townhouses,
That
some of which are very small townhouses. You
is
know,
wild.
it, yeah. Think of sort of some of those really old. What are they? Are they brownstone houses? Is that the sort of
Yeah.
thing I'm talking
I
about?
think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, kind of, townhouses where they're all kind of squashed in together. And normally those are quite posh houses. But think of those, but much smaller.
Well,
Lots of much smaller ones.
yeah. I'm picturing Sherlock, like the BBC
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
His
absolutely.
place is like so narrow.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
But they're beautiful. Way prettier than any apartment I ever lived in.
Well, when you talk about, people talk about tiny homes, and they say, oh, I've got this tiny home and it's this. And I'm like, that's a tiny home? I mean, it's smaller than my home. So my house wouldn't. I don't think my house classes as a tiny home. I'm not entirely sure how many square feet it is because we do it in meters.
Yeah.
But I'm living in something which is admittedly a bit small, but it's 65 square meters, which
Okay.
is it's definitely under 700 square feet.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Uh 1 meter is like just under 3 feet.
Just over 3 feet,
Is it
but
just
yeah,
over? Oh,
just
okay.
over 3 feet. Yeah.
See. Oof.
No.
It's so dumb that we even have the imperial system. Why? Why? There's only like 3 countries that use it.
Well, it's interesting that you have it and you keep the whole lot, whereas we have this very strange halfway house. Um, so I definitely, so I definitely measure the room in meters, and I
Uh-huh.
measure, the So, okay, get this. The distance to my daughter's school is probably about 200 meters. But the distance into town, the centre of town, that's about a mile.
What?
And that's genuinely the way I'm thinking. And it's the way most UK people would think. You know,
Interesting.
yeah, and it's like, the milk which comes from the milkman, we get a milkman deliver, glass bottles of milk, and,
Uh-huh.
they're outside our doorstep. That comes in pints. But if I go into the shop and pick up milk, or actually, no, I would pick up milk from the shop in pints normally, but I'd pick up a litre of orange juice.
Weird.
It's really bizarre.
So it's just
It's
kind of like a mix of different ones.
it's a really yes, and I would weigh myself using stones and pounds and ounces. I mean, clearly not to the ounce, but I would then go and buy something online, and it would tell me, the weight of the thing I'd bought. It would tell me in grams, kilos and grams.
Weird.
In fact, one of the weirdest things is that is changing. So I'm in my late 30s, and I am one of the last to use to really use pounds for weight. So when my children were born, then I noticed that parents who were younger than me, significantly younger, like, 5 or 10 years younger than me, were talking about their children's weights using grams, whereas I
Hmm.
would be talking about it using pounds.
Yeah,
It was
that is
really interesting.
weird. I wonder how that all came to be,
Well,
but
there needs to be a generational shift somewhere, I suppose, and
yes,
it happens to be
definitely.
ours. But yeah, it is really strange, and those people I know who have technical scientific jobs tend to be further down the metric scale. So
Yeah,
so they'll tend to weigh themselves, using kilos rather than using stone, and they'll measure themselves using centimeters. Um,
yeah.
that's one of those things which I think in as both. I know that I'm 5'3", but I also know that I'm 156 centimeters.
See, you're more versatile than me. I couldn't tell you how many centimeters I am. 20? No, I know it's way higher than that. But it's like I should learn that, and I should learn my weight in kilos too, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But
Basically, a yard is a meter. I mean, not
it
quite exactly.
well, but I don't even know a yard that well.
Oh,
Like when I
that's
think of a yard, the only time I use yard is like for football.
right. Okay. But it's, but 3 feet. 3 feet
Okay,
is a meter.
nice.
Yeah. So if somebody is, well, it's not quite. 3 feet is like 93 centimeters or something. So if
Yeah,
somebody is 6 foot tall, then they're about 185 centimeters.
yeah. So I as kind of some bonus episodes for this, we're playing a tabletop RPG, and one of the people's from Wales and one's
Hmm.
from Seattle. I guess two of them. It's a couple from Wales, and so I'll start describing things in feet, and then I'm like, oh wait, like
Hang on, what is that?
meter, yeah. And so then we ended up just saying like, you know what, we're just gonna say squares, like, and so we just came to the universal term of squares, which is like a meter and a half or 3 feet for
Yeah, whatever it
like
needs to be.
or a meter and a half or 5 feet. So it's just
Yeah,
like that's roughly.
that makes sense. Yeah.
That way we can just say that it's universal. uh,
This is the trouble about, going across, across countries. You may not have
exactly.
language barriers, although sometimes you do, and you find out that there are all sorts of things that you never knew were a different
Hmm.
word.
That happens pretty often. Luckily, I'm listening to like a podcast from over there, and so I'm kind of picking up on little phrases and whatnot, and interviewing people. There's been times where people will go like, "Oh, I'm chafed" or "chuffed," and I'm just like, I have to stop the interview and be like, "What does this mean? What are you saying? Did I
What?
upset you?"
It's all in the tone. It's all in the tone.
True, yeah.
You can generally tell.
That's true. Oh, well, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
We went a little over time, but that's
We did.
great. I don't
That's
mind.
fine. You can, you can make of that whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. I may edit a bit of this out, but so why don't you plug where you can be found? Social media,
Mm.
website, all that stuff.
So you can find me on Twitter, Dissent Games. You can find me on Instagram, although I'm not very good at Instagram, I'm afraid. That's also Dissent Games. And you can find us on Facebook. Search for Library Labyrinth. That's where we can be found on Facebook. But there's also a website. Yes, a website with newsletters, which I endeavour to keep vaguely up to date. That is librarylabyrinth.com. So, yes, please come and check us out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and hanging out with me.
No, it was fun. It was an excellent evening.
Good. Oh, yeah, it's evening for you. It's afternoon for me.
It's evening. It's dark here. I'm sitting here in the dark, and I've got a new mouse, which has all this exciting light thing going on. Yeah, this is a relatively cheap gamer mouse, so it likes to show off its colours.
But it gives you the feel of like being in a club, right?
Of course, yeah. It's got that sort of cracked effect on the top where you've got the colours showing through the paint, and it's yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm 14 years old again. Although clearly they didn't have these sort of mice when I was 14 years old. When I was 14 years old, we had the dial tone.
Yep. And then
one computer.
Ball.
Oh yeah, and that little, the little red racing or whatever it was, which was the one computer game we had loaded up on the computer.
Oh man.
My parents were computer programmers. They did not
really?
like they did not like to take their work home. So in fact we got computers at home later than most of my friends.
Oh no. That's sad.
It's all fine.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter at NerdOutWithUs. If you enjoyed the show, I would absolutely adore you if you left a review on wherever you're listening to us from. Reviews help podcasts to be seen more, so if I've got more reviews on there, then that's going to catch the eyes of more people. So if you'd like to do that, I would super duper appreciate it. If there's anybody that you would like to hear on the show, someone in the board game community, no matter how big, no matter how small, let me know. You can @ me and I'll reach out to them and see if they want to come on. If it's you, that'll be even easier because then I can just be like, yeah, when you want to come on. All right, folks, thanks so much. And until next time, keep nerding out.